Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Fantasy Football Predictive Analytics with Rhys Tiller. Guest Nick Whalen. Nick has so many things going. His Devy stuff, the graduates, so much going on. Nick, how are you doing?
I'm good, man. Well, first off, we have football going on, but there's NBA, finals are coming up, baseball playoffs are here. It's way better than earlier in 2020. So I'm just thankful for that.
Turn the page, right?
Yeah, how are you guys doing?
We're good. Good. It's my job to try to keep him in line. Some days I'm more successful than others. And it's his job to get me in trouble with mom as much as he can.
I'm innocent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So before the last time we did this, you guys had visited me in Madison, right?
Yes.
So that was nice seeing you guys. Went out, had some safe quarantine. We had the masks we need to, and we got some good burgers and some cheese curds, right?
Yes, you did. And he was all right. So Nick's a Wisconsin native, and so those of us traveling through, we're not as bright. And so he gets macaroni and cheese, and I'm like, that sounds good. Didn't get it, got fries. And then I was like, Wisconsin's known for something. I think it's cheese.
Mm-hmm.
And so anyway, it's just one of those things that it's all good. So Nick, you put out, let's get this started. So you are prolific in terms of having different deliverables, different content that you put out, right? You have something for Devy. What's that called?
Yeah, so the Devy report, that's I don't even know how many pages this year, but it's always over. It's this my sixth year doing it already,
Wow.
which is kind of crazy. But it's over 100 pages. It's basically it's film-based analysis on the top players.
So we'll start there. Devy players going into this college season, as wacky as this season is, anybody that's you're like, I knew it, or now we got to look at this different, or shocked you, or any of that stuff?
Yeah, so I'll go with one both ways. So one quarterback I thought that was going to do well, Brock Purdy for Iowa State, has not done well at all. He's looked really bad, turning the ball over, just not consistent. His breakout game last year was against Oklahoma, where came back and was really gritting that one out. And you're like, okay, this guy's got a little Baker Mayfield in him. He can scramble, keep it alive, and it's just gone way the other way for him. So he's kind of lost some draft stock, I would say. One guy I really like that's shown up well, true freshman running back, is Babb for Georgia Tech.
Mm-hmm.
He signed with Georgia Tech. He was my third-ranked running back, and you're like, Georgia Tech of all places. You got Clemson, Bama, wherever, and he's really shown out really well, returning the ball. Every time he gets his hands on the ball, he's a playmaker. So somebody to watch out there.
It's interesting. So I was in some Devy leagues, picked up Costello as many places I could, just because Mike Leach was going to give him volume. Whether it's good, whether he does well or not, he's getting volume. Mm-hmm. But one of the disappointments I had was Jamie Newman opting out, because I'm not so sure his tape at Wake is worthy of a mid-high first-round pick, and I was just kind of disappointed. And then Georgia, JT Daniels isn't really shining, and so
anyway. he wasn't even cleared yet. Yeah, so I'm with you. So Jamie Newman, the tape that I saw, he is almost a better runner than a thrower. I mean, if that first read isn't there, he can't come off of that, and his accuracy outside the numbers and down the field just isn't there. He's kind of a JT Barrett like when you saw them struggle, teams were pressing them and made them win over the top and they couldn't do it. Or even you could say, dare I say this, it might be a little too soon, Lamar Jackson last night, if you watch some of his struggles outside the numbers and down the field.
So Lamar, we can get into him. It's interesting. He, some guys are better with the lead. Mm-hmm. And I would even say Josh Allen's kind of that way. And, they're 3-0. He's playing great. I know he brought some comebacks. So I want to give him his due. I definitely want to give him his due. Mm-hmm. But there's certain guys that play so much better from the lead than they do behind. And so you also have the graduates, right?
Yep.
and that's rookies, all that sort of thing. Anybody that stood out to you?
Yeah, so the graduates is going to be, it's kind of, they graduate from a Devy report and they come to the NFL. So it's, only guys that come out. I think some of the guys I've been a little bit lower on have, been there. And I know people don't want to hear this, but Cam Akers has kind of shown who he is, even though he got hurt. There's a, I wasn't big on like an AJ Dillon, for example. I was not high on James Robinson. So like, that's one that, we all kind of learned, I would say. I was higher on Keyshawn Vaughn. That one was a little bit of a surprise, but somebody, now again, this comes out before the draft, but I was sky high on Clyde Edwards-Helaire. He was top 2 for me before all of that. And, people are like, what the heck? Swift and Akers, they got to be way ahead of him. But I believed in him, and he's really kind of shown out and done well.
Who'd you have as running back 1 if CH was number 2?
Taylor, which honestly, that's somebody I want to break down more because he's producing because of touches. His efficiency isn't there yet. So we'll see. And another guy I was really high on that had a good game this last week. I haven't seen the film yet. Is T. Higgins. I really liked T. Higgins.
And me too. I would also say, recently we're having this conversation. The girls in our house love when he and I get off on football talk. If we're redoing top 6 in a rookie draft today, can you keep CeeDee Lamb out of the top 3?
I don't think you can. I mean, he's my wide receiver 1. I mean, he's so good. And what's interesting there is with prolific pass catchers there, they're still forcing him the football because he's so talented. And they all kind of fit because Gallup's an outside guy. He's a split end. And, Cooper can win anywhere, but he's got that niche in the slot and he really does well there. So, I think it's going to be here to stay.
Rhys was looking at Cowboys numbers earlier today.
Yes.
Do you want to tell us about it? So, like, Dak is on pace for some huge pass attempt numbers, and Cooper has what?
So Cooper has 35 targets already this season. And Zeke's number 2 with 23. So
which 8 a game is a lot.
Yes, yeah. Especially for a running back. That's like McCaffrey total.
So how many pass attempts does Dak have?
Dak is on pace for 773 pass attempts.
It's because the defense is so poor for the Cowboys. And so we'll migrate into the NFL talk. Your Bears, and I wore this just for you, and we talked about it. The Bears.
They're strong right now, winning, barely.
They are 3-0. Combined records of the teams they've beaten are
1-8.
1-8. It would have been 2-7 if the Falcons knew how to recover a onside kick, right?
Or if Julio caught the touchdown, because he dropped a touchdown from Russell Gage.
Right. But I was just going with the Cowboys could have been 0-3 looking up at the Washington football team and the Eagles, right? I mean, to me, that's just the craziest thing because everybody's like, Cowboys, Cowboys, Cowboys.
So something interesting. So because, I'm a coach, that's my pedigree, and you still get the itch. Like, I just love, X and O's football. So I've watched this YouTube season on, and this is before football started again, on last season and year before. There's this guy, high school coach down south, lots of money, where he's like the coach that like never punts. So he's really known for onside kicks and going for it no matter what. I think he's punted like 3 times in like a decade, something crazy. And the onside kicks that they do, they have the regular one and they have one they call copter, which is exactly what happened in the Falcons-Cowboys game. And it spins that same way. And I saw it. I'm like, oh, that's copter. And they're all like making these new names up. But I'm like, I saw that one. They're copying high school teams and it works. So it was really cool to see it.
The one advantage, so everybody's looking for advantages on onside kicks. The one place I think you could have an advantage is up the middle because people spread their defenses too wide. Mm-hmm. And so the rule is you can't put too many people in overloaded side. But if you do it down the middle, you will have a numbers game because the defense has their players so wide. Does that make sense?
Yep.
One team that has mastered that, the Falcons with Younghoe Koo. Notice they've recovered their past, I think, 3 or 4 onside kicks. because they recovered 3 in the Thanksgiving game against the Saints.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, that was a crazy game.
Rhys brings the memory. He's got a much better memory than his old man.
I wonder what the history is on that, Rhys. Like, how many teams have like the most onside kicks recovered in a row?
I don't think that's one of those stats that you can just like look up on Pro Football Reference.
No, I don't think so. But I love that site though.
Oh, we do too, and it's just one of those things where Doug Drennan, who's part of Football Guys, behind the scenes, he what's interesting is he lives in Tennessee. Shout out to Drennan wherever he is, and so I grew up in Tulsa, Oklahoma. He lived in the street behind my street, and I see where he's from because we're both on Football Guys. Small world. And so it was a crazy similar vintage and all that stuff. But Drennan's a PhD math guy, so he does a lot of the behind the scenes. He's a lot smarter than the one sat next to Rhys. But,
well, hey, you got math in your house too. I learned that over our visit.
The wife. Yep. The wife. And she's a lot smarter than I am as well. So the bar's pretty low. All right, so let's talk Bears.
All right.
I have 4 questions, open-ended.
Yeah.
What do you think about the Nick Foles regime coming on? The era of Nick Foles. Is it going to last? Is there, because Nick Foles has been a great short-term guy. Jacksonville, his stints haven't always worked out well. So What are your thoughts?
So, well, this is obviously after the trade, someone I really looked in depth on because I wanted to know more, So he had, coming up, people that know him, he's, a mid-round pick from Arizona, kind of cast into starting because of injury. His second year was prolific. I mean, he had a crazy, Rhys probably knows the stats off the top of his head.
26 to 2 touchdown interception ratio.
Yeah, see, look at that. I don't even need to look it up. Rhys is here. So he was insane that second year. That was Chip Kelly's first year. So, that was rolling, this new offense, and it was, high octane. People loved it. His second year in that offense didn't go well. So, he got moved to the Rams. He's with Jeff Fisher. That obviously doesn't go well for any quarterback, as we've seen. And then, he got his second stint with the Eagles, which went really well. And the one thing that's interesting is people think of that Super Bowl run, which went really well, obviously. But the second time went well, too. He came in, Wentz was hurt, finished the regular season. He had the most passing completions in a row record, and he had the most passing yards in a game record for the Eagles. Then next year, started in 18, playoffs, upset the Bears, which were really good on the road defense when he didn't have hardly any weapons. And then he goes to Jacksonville and breaks his collarbone in the first game. So, he comes back after like 8 weeks off. He does okay. His QB rating is like an 81. You're like, oh, he's trash. And I'm like, well, when you look at it, like, they're losing. You might as well see what you have in Gardner, at that point. But, so, he got hurt there. I don't really put a lot on him there. The Rams, everyone kind of stinks. I haven't really seen him consistently play bad. He's had spots where he's been really good. So there's no way Trubisky is going to get the job back without an injury. I'll just say that. I mean, when you watch the film, you see a quarterback that knows where to go with the ball. Trubisky doesn't. I mean, the pick that he threw, which, was Jimmy Graham should have settled down. It was a zone, and he was running a man route. But Robinson's coming with a dig right behind him, wide open, for a first down. Trubisky throws it right to a defender. He tackles him so he doesn't give up a pick six. But, like, basic reads that he's not doing. Nick Foles comes in, basically throws 5 touchdowns. Anthony Miller drops one. Allen Robinson doesn't fight the guy off. He gives a pick, which, by the way, that's 2 weeks in a row for you, Robinson. Fix that. And then he throws 3 touchdowns. So it's 5 touchdowns in like a quarter and a half. And everything was more efficient. Now, Foles could have threw more interceptions because he's down 2 scores. He's taking chances. But you just felt very different. Is it going to look different? That's probably your next question. I think it could, Jeff, because what Trubisky can do athletically, Foles can't do. So it could be a little bit more of like that, like RPO stuff, which Foles did with the Eagles. But I think, Anthony Miller is going to get used more. Darnell Mooney, Robinson's going to get targets where he can catch and run. Shocker. So, yeah, I think it's going to be a very new offense for Chicago.
All right. Second question, Rhys, you have any before I keep going?
Well, but we thought before coming in that if Foles got the starting job, he wouldn't pepper A-Rob with targets, but it'd make up for it with efficiency.
Mhm.
It was almost the exact opposite, where he just had to start peppering targets. But also, we shouldn't be like congratulating Foles too much, as you mentioned, throwing 5 touchdowns. But it was also against the Falcons.
Right. And they were really beat up too. I mean, they were, even in that game, they lost Grady Jarrett. They lost another corner. I mean, it looked like a practice squad defense out there.
Yeah, and the irony is, what's Dan Quinn's specialty?
Yeah, exactly. Well, isn't it the same thing with when you saw Brian Billick go to Baltimore? He was an offensive guru, and then goes there and it's like they're known for their defense. Like,
how about Adam Gase?
Yeah,
What's
he a guru in anything?
Yeah, he's good. Well, riding those Peyton Manning coattails.
Yeah, he's about to get fired.
Oh yeah, and so all right, so let's on that. You mentioned Jimmy Graham. Jimmy Graham has been lost. He has been, in fact, in a dynasty league. I picked him up last week because he had just been discarded. Kind of in the Trey Burton way is now, and it's painful, right? And so, I mean, all we have to do is Adam Shaheen just go down those Bears second-round picks. But
oh, that would hurt. Dan Design. I mean, there's like a list of second-round picks that just do nothing.
Oh yeah, Rhys
commit.
Yeah. Well, he has a chance, maybe.
Well, with Graham, but Graham's doubled up both Cohen and Montgomery in targets.
Mm-hmm.
That's crazy, isn't it? So can Graham be a tight end one for fantasy?
So I think he can, and I'll tell you why. So people, like he signed that deal, and automatically I was like, really? Because he hasn't been the same guy for a long time. But throughout training camp, they have hyped up Jimmy Graham a ton. And I'm like, okay, let's see. And then you can see it even with Trubisky, with Foles. They have thrown him the ball in the red zone a lot. He's gotten targets. He might not be the same athletic guy that's going to get these huge average depth of target or yards per reception, but he's going to be used. And when you want to look at Evan Ingram, you want to look at a lot of these tight ends that maybe they're used, maybe they're not. Jimmy Graham's up there right now. And now you have a quarterback that's going to get, weird to say this, drives put together and maybe get in the end zone, which is weird also. You think that's just going to help everybody, and really the sky's the limit. I mean, A-Rob, you're thinking he's a wide receiver 1, and then I'm sure we'll talk about the wide receiver 2 and 3 here as well. But yeah, I think tight end 1 is there because also the running game isn't outstanding. And so I think that the receivers are going to be more of a benefit.
All right, so let's piggyback on that. Let's follow in. David Montgomery. Cohen's out. It's now or never for Montgomery. Mike Davis is in Carolina. And it's kind of interesting, all the people that cast off Mike Davis. I'm not saying he's good. I'm not saying he's great. He's a pretty good receiver out of the backfield. He was good at South Carolina. Let's give him his due. And those that play in Devy leagues, he was rostered in every stinking one of them.
I posted that either last night or today. Did you see that? I said, people forget about Mike Davis. He was a thing in Devy.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But there's nothing behind Montgomery, right?
Well, Cordell Patterson's looked okay.
Yes. All right. I give you that.
Besides
Cordero, is there anybody that's going to run the ball?
No. So I'll say this. So I think I've been the biggest Montgomery hater on Twitter. People will say hater, but I think I'm a realist. And up till this point, I've been right. Because people thought he was going to be this thing and he's never been this thing. What he's done this year has been different. And I think when you want to look at what happened towards the end of 2019 and this year is they've switched. So James Daniel was playing center. Cody Whitehair was playing left guard, and it was not working out. They've switched positions. Cody Whitehair's played center in the past, and they've looked awesome. They are double teaming. They are reaching guys. They're creating holes, especially on that left side, and they do zones right up the middle. And it's worked out well. That's for Patterson and for Montgomery. Montgomery's issue has been he has tried to dance way too much and not get downhill. This year, he's got downhill more. Now, he's had one real good game, I would say, maybe, if you want to count it. And that was late, in week 2 against the Giants. And Giants just aren't a good defense. And he got like 40 yards on the last drive. He's going to get some touches. He's going to get some yardage. He'll have some, he had the swing pass for a touchdown. It was really kind of, How couldn't he get the yardage? I think he's going to be okay. I just don't think he's ever going to be a top-end RB2. You're looking at a low-end RB2, and that's just kind of what he is. And they're using Patterson because when you watch Patterson, he's way more explosive than Montgomery. And he's just as big. He's 220. It's crazy. I think Patterson's going to see – now, Montgomery's going to get more touches, but I think Patterson's going to see a bigger package too. Like they're both going to get more. And I just don't think people are going to get what they want to get out of this, sadly.
So I wish Patterson would have stayed in New England. I think New England knew how to use his uniqueness,
right?
Josh McDaniels. So let's go back to Bears. Total team, whatever. 3-0. What do you predict their record to be?
Wow. Well, I'm going to say this. So I said this prior to the season, and again, I'm a homer, right? You got to my lens is always filtered that way. Yeah.
Got this.
So, I was born in 85. I mean, for a reason, but their schedule is just staggered for them to do well. All of their hard games are at home. They got Indy and Tampa at home the next 2 weeks. And you're like, okay, those two teams are pretty good. Yeah, but they're at home. I can know the crowd noise isn't a thing, but still, it's a familiarity. That's why the teams at home always are better, because you know the routine. Getting on a bus, flying, new hotel, new surroundings, it just messes with people. And that's just more of the mental makeup. So, I mean, you think that they're going to split or take both games, I would say. I know that sounds crazy, but I mean, the Colts aren't playing that well. Their defense is, but they're not playing that well. Tampa's going to be without Godwin, from what I'm hearing. Yes. And they're not in Florida, you know what I mean? And they're got their own thing going on over there. So the Saints, that's at home. They have to go on the road to Carolina, Jacksonville. They still got Detroit. They got 2 games against Minnesota. I mean, it is just favored for Chicago, I think, to do well. Right now they're 3-0. So I mean, you think sky high, they've barely won, but that's with Trubisky. I mean, they have just bled out points that they missed. Also, their kickers missed 2 field goals the last 2 weeks. And I think he's going to be out of a job. And then we're going to get our kicker back. So I would say Chicago right now, I think they're an 11-win team. I know it sounds crazy. You got 2 games against Green Bay. That's going to be hard. You think the Saints, maybe they're going to be hard. Maybe they're not from the way they're playing right now. The defense is still good. Is it great? No. You're missing Eddie Goldman in the middle. Danny Trevathan is playing terrible right now. Eddie Jackson just had a bad game. But Jalen Johnson is the 3rd best corner, I believe they said in PFF, in terms of yards giving up per snap as a rookie. You have a Pro Bowler, Kyle Fuller, opposite him. We know Eddie Jackson's got the ability in the back end. Roquan is still Roquan, but you have Akeem Hicks in the middle, which people forget about Akeem Hicks. Akeem Hicks is more important to that defense maybe than Khalil Mack.
Right.
They're 3-0 right now. When he went out last year, they were 2-1, I believe. And then he got hurt in the 4th week, I believe. And then before that, they were what? I don't know. Was it 13-3 or whatever it was? 12-4. There you go. Yeah. So you want to combine those records. They've been pretty good with Akeem Hicks in there. Now you had Robert Quinn. I mean, that team's coming together, and it's and you look at an easier schedule. I think 11 wins is probable.
Yeah, I put it at 9. Because even if you think they have a hard schedule, or first of all, the next 2 games against a dome team and a Florida team, you wish it was cooler weather. If you are the Bears, you wish there was snow on the ground when you play a dome team and a Florida team. But even with 13 games to go, if they win 6, which is half roughly, 9 wins. They win 7, 10 wins. So it's in the realm of possibilities. And along that. What are you thinking, Rhys?
You mentioned Akeem Hicks. He's 2nd in the NFL in sacks with 3.5.
I know. That's the thing. Well, and they wiped out a sack for Mack and for Hicks based on roughing the passer, which Hicks was warranted. Max drives me nuts, by the way. But, we don't have to get into that. So, yeah, I mean, when you want to be a good defense, you have to generate pressure. The problem is they're giving up rushing yards up the middle right now, and you face Jonathan Taylor this week. But they're trying to get Snacks Harrison. Snacks, if you're hearing this, man, we need you. Clog up that middle.
Interior defensive line is so underrated.
Don't tell David Gelman that.
I believe that. But
how many 340-pounders can we get?
And so I just think, you go, man, that guy's so fat, dude. Yeah, he's hard to move in the middle, and it takes two linemen. That's what you want. And,
Yeah.
I think back when the Ravens defense was good, Kelly Gregg was like 5'10", 3-something, short and squatty. And those guys were always really good.
Well, to go back down that road, one thing, I'm going to RIP Raiders one year when it was terrible. Tony Siragusa landed on Rich Gannon on purpose, separated his shoulder. That ended that playoff run. And then you want to go back to the Bears back when they were good in the early 2000s. Keith Traylor and Ted Washington were those big guys, and it was so much fun. Brian Urlacher ran wherever he wanted to. There was no lineman climb up to the second level on that.
And Washington's a guy that if you saw him on the street, you wouldn't think he was athletic. Or what's the guy's name that played at Houston and New England as a D tackle?
Sam Adams?
No. I'll think of him later. And he could dunk a basketball was the part that was just crazy.
Yes. I know you're talking. Vince Wilfork.
Yes, Vince Wilfork dunking a basketball.
Him kicking field goals? There's him against, is it Mia Hamm or what? Some like women's soccer player kicking field goals. He's so athletic.
Oh yeah, it's just amazing. We don't think those guys can, and it is amazing, especially doing that 350 pounds.
That's the thing that I've noticed, because I've coached college, it's high school to college to NFL, is linemen's feet. They're so athletic. They're never on the ground. And people just forget that. I think they might be more impressive than the skill guys.
Right. How about the Jets' new tackle? I know he's hurt.
Micaiah, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Running a sub-5 40 at 6'7",
huge.
Huge.
Have you seen the picture of him next to like Jamison Crowder?
It looks like The Blind Side or something, right? And so, anyway, we talk football way too much. And so, at least for the girls in our house.
No, I love this because I live alone, so I need this.
Yeah, so Rhys keeps me honest. He always brings stuff up that I haven't thought of. So, Bears offense, receiver 2. I really like Mooney. Those that do not know him, go pick him up in your Dynasty League, stash him. He's what we wanted. I mean, the NFL fantasy guys wanted Ted Ginn to be the last 3 or 4 years. Mm-hmm. Somebody that's fast, maybe undersized, maybe a early career Deshaun Jackson's his height, his ceiling. But Mooney's a good player. And Miller, I could see being a flash of one game, missing in action the next. And Mooney's the guy that I could really see popping. What do you think?
Yeah, so I'm really torn because I absolutely loved Anthony Miller coming out of Memphis, and he's flashed. He had the shoulder injury a couple of times. The last 2 weeks, he's dropped a touchdown, and I know people don't want to count drops or they don't care about that. I care. As a fan, catch the touchdown. You know what I mean? Those are different games if you catch that, But he's a good route runner, and Trubisky really hindered his numbers. I mean, there have been stretches where if you calculate that out, I mean, he's like wide receiver 2 range. So it's there in terms of route running. And now that Foles can see the whole field and make reads, you can see it. But and he's got swag too that I like, but he does not have the speed that Mooney has. And when you watch Mooney too, the game isn't too big for him. He's a guy that I liked out of Tulane. He's got the speed, but there's guys that are just fast, but he can catch. He's got range. He's got route running. And like I said, he's got a little swag to him. I mean, when he got caught the touchdown 2 weeks ago, that was a 50-50 ball. He wasn't even open yet. And he works through the defender and high points it in the end zone. And you're like, oh, you're not a rookie. And he catches and tries to do something after, not just go out of bounds. He's not afraid, which really gets you excited. So if I had to pick one, I would love to say Mooney with you, Jeff, but not this year. You let him develop a little bit more. I think Miller's going to get better numbers overall.
There are only 2 targets separating them, 9 to 11.
I like Mooney more right now, but I think that might be a little bit of me loving a rookie because he's new versus like Miller's routes are sexy. I mean, he creates separation all the time.
It's like Judy. It's like Jerry Judy. You could watch it, or the receiver who is not getting enough credit right now, even though a lot of people are, but it's still not enough, is Calvin Ridley. He is putting on a clinic.
Oh.
And the way he turned around the Bears defenders in that game was a clinic. And I just don't think people are, he was an older prospect. Yeah. I get it, right? But name 10 receivers you'd rather have in the NFL this year.
I know. Well, and the other thing too, that I think that's a different ball game too. If Russell Gage is playing the whole game, Russell Gage looks good, but he got knocked out early, and really it was just Ridley. And I typed this. I was like, Bears literally just defend Calvin Ridley. Make anyone else beat you. They got nobody.
Right. And you know what's funny about it? You brought up Gage. I'm gonna pub Rhys's book. Rhys had Gage in here as a breakout because
Calvin Ridley and Julio Jones aren't exactly the poster boys for health, right? And if they both go down, who else do they have as they didn't draft anyone?
Plus red zone targets.
Red zone.
Because didn't Hooper lead the team in red zone?
Hooper led the team. Gage was number 2, I believe. So
red zone targets. What Rhys was saying is he had more red zone targets than Julio or Calvin Ridley last year.
Oh, wow.
Which was a little surprising.
Yes.
And so anyway, Gage was a flyer that I had on many flyer teams. Everybody was going after Steven Sims, and I get it. But give me the number 3 guy in Atlanta versus the number 3 guy at that time before the injuries in Washington, right? You mentioned Miller coming out of Memphis. It's crazy the talent, especially at running back, that Memphis has now and has put out in the last 5 years. People do not want to give them credit. Pollard, Henderson, Gainwell now,
Gibson,
and then there's still one more, I think.
Well, and you got Coxie too, a wide receiver. He's going to be coming out. He's decent. I mean, you have Miller.
Paxton Lynch.
Yeah.
That still hurts.
Excellent.
The Broncos fan finds that painful.
I put together a thread because I've been the most, I think, anti-Gibson because this hype is it gets so big. They're like, how many touchdowns on so many touches? Well, he hasn't done that in the NFL. So there you go. He's not a superstar. But when you look at the things that you do, you love bigger sample sizes, right? And he just doesn't have it in terms of just playing a running back. He didn't have it in JUCO, and he was fourth in running back carries at Memphis. 4th. I mean, so, when I'm going through his film, he's learning to play running back. He's too excited, overrunning holes, not anticipating when to cut, not reading defenses well, misreading holes, all that kind of stuff. Is he big and athletic? Yeah, he's got all of that. But we've seen that Christine Michael, Mario Fannin, etc. Will he put it all together? People are like, well, can you learn all that stuff? Sure. But the odds are low. Because this is the NFL. You know what I mean? People think well, you can just teach that. Well, how many guys can you just teach? I mean, did we just teach Stephen Hill how to be a wide receiver? You can take the, all the clay, but can you mold it into what you want? And I think the odds are against. And I think people, you can't watch highlight films. And plus, watch the highlight films and watch the defense. It was terrible defense, by the way.
But Kalen Ballage. What's the guy's name that was at TCU? The big guy with the very unique, or a guy named Tiefertiller talking about a guy with
Siwu. Yeah.
But those were big, fast dudes. And when we talk about learning to play, there's a reason that the Danny Amendolas, Edelmans, those guys that have little talent to know how to play, get more numbers than the guys with extreme talent in their learning. You always would bet on the Amendolas of the world having a better career than the other side.
How about Frank Gore right now?
Yeah.
Frank Gore's getting yards, and he's doing it when you're like, well, they should give them to these young guys with all of this upside because he understands the game. That's with running backs. People have it wrong. Running back isn't 20, 30-yard gains. Running back is the junk yards and cutting right when you need to. That's what being a running back is.
So you get 4 instead of 3. Here's the perfect example. I'm gonna tee you up with the softball. Why else would Detroit, who has a 2nd-round pick on Swift, 2nd-round pick on Kerryon Johnson, bring in this has-been, I say that very tongue-in-cheek, has been named Adrian Peterson, and Peterson's done well.
Yeah, he runs hard. That's the thing is when you watch him against Chicago, I mean, when you get to that 2nd, 3rd level, probably 3rd level, they don't want to tackle. And it proved, he ran for, that's the thing that I got into this debate with, who was it? Chargian. He didn't like, I quote tweeted him, but he's like, well, if Andrew and Peterson can have so many yards, right away with Detroit. Devonta Freeman can with New York. And I'm like, well, listen, hold on. Like Adrian Peterson almost ran for 900 yards last year. He's been good. Like that's never, Freeman hasn't done it in 2017 maybe or something. It's been a long time. So, but he runs hard. He understands concepts. He understands holes. And that's what Frank Gore does. But when these young guys don't get that, and that's the other thing too, everything is sped up in the NFL. One extra step here, one hesitation there, that's a hole come and gone. It's different. It's not as forgiving than at Memphis, and that stuff matters. And that's a career that's here, that's a career that's gone.
In Rhys and I are Oklahoma State guys, and it's especially true right now with Chuba Hubbard. I see a guy that has all the talent. He's not processing as quickly, and his vision isn't as strong. And guys without vision that play running back, and they have to wait to see it. It's kind of like a quarterback that has to see a guy open to throw it. Mm-hmm. Running backs that have to see it to hit the hole, history has not been kind.
Yep.
Do you think
that's why fair? I love – go ahead, I'm sorry.
I was like, is that fair?
No, that's exactly – and that's why I like Travis Etienne so much. People are, it's Clemson. That kid runs hard and anticipates. And there's also a thing of how quickly you react. Are you react aggressively? Or are you reacting like, okay, it's open, now I'm going to go? Two very different things. Because again, that's a split second. And that's, when you run hard, good things can happen. But you can't run hard at somebody. You have to run, a little bit away. I mean, Etienne is special. He has more, what was it? He has more rushing touchdowns on almost like half the touches as Jonathan Taylor. And his yards per carry is one of the best of all time. I mean, he's put up this historic thing, but people aren't talking about it because it's Clemson. Everybody does that. Name a running back at Clemson that's been as good as him. Spiller isn't even close in terms of numbers, but because he's a running back and he has the athleticism. Those are two different things. And people think you can just put people in there, and it's not how it works.
Indy's shorter. And so, it's kind of like MJD. I'm a taller guy, you know that. And so everybody, when I say this, I don't mean it disrespectfully. Everybody said MJD is small. I'm like, no, he's short. He just wasn't small. Oh. And he was 5'6", 205. You think that's pretty compact. And so he's one of the people that's been kind. I always try to publicize the people that have been kind. He signed, we sent a jersey out his way to sign, and it got shipped back, and it was pretty cool. And so, Rhys, you were going to ask him a question?
Well, with Peterson, the Bears secondary did not look good trying to tackle him, especially when he got to the second level. But I was going to go, when you were talking about like trying to see the hole, I was thinking of Le'Veon Bell with his find the hole, find the hole, find the hole with the Steelers. And the reason why that would work for him there is because they had such a good offensive line that they could hold the tackles or the ends long enough for him to find a hole, like that extra half second you're talking about. But with the Jets, he's lucky to get half a second before he gets hit.
Yeah. Well, and that's part of the problem too, is I think that it's such a copycat league. People see this and they want to do this. Now everyone wants to be like Mahomes probably and no look and throw like, they're special. There's only one Steph Curry. There's only one Patrick Mahomes, et cetera. And you see David Montgomery being kind of like Le'Veon Bell. Well, guess what the difference is? Le'Veon Bell's a great athlete. Montgomery's not. And so you don't see the same type of numbers. And like you said, Rhys, I mean, the offensive line in Pittsburgh's way better. You can get away with that. And plus, Le'Veon Bell lost 10 to 15 pounds since Michigan State, and he got way quicker. So, you see that stuff, but everything will work if, you can anticipate and read holes the right way. And even Montgomery doesn't do it right all the time. Sometimes you don't have to make a big play. You make the 4 yards because that's what's going to put you, the thing that people don't get to, and because I'm a coach, you have something you want to get done. On first down, you want 4 yards. Second down, you want half of what you have to get. And third down, it's manageable. When you can get things manageable, then they're not teeing off and blitzing. It's not third and long. Your left tackle, right tackle aren't in, issues. That's what you have to do. And being running back, you don't want the guy to try and go outside and bounce all the time. Sometimes just getting the tough yards is okay.
Ronnie Hillman. Broncos.
Look at these names. Tatum Bell, you can pull him out.
Entire lane, and he'll just go outside.
And so, it's interesting. So Rhys and I sit there, watch a game, and I've watched a lot of football in my years. So I'll call what play's coming. And almost invariably, if it's a first down incompletion, second down is a run to the inside almost all the time. And I'll be like, it's a run to left or inside, because they want that 3, 4, 5 yards to be third down and manageable. Where I would love to see a screen pass. I would love, because defense pushes their players, their resources to the middle. Let's go outside. So as we wind down, I always love these conversations, Nick, and we thank you for being on with us. Let's go around and talk about a few NFL players. You all right with that, Rhys?
Yeah.
So, Nick, I want to give you your props. You were probably the biggest Josh Allen lover I knew, and he's proved you right. So
Eat it, everybody.
I'm still hesitant. I was anti. I moved to the middle because his rushing hasn't been there, but having Steph Diggs and John Brown's playing his heart out, and let's talk rookie Gabriel Davis playing great. Josh Allen's got a chance.
Yep. Yeah. So, I mean, it's been pretty fun to watch what the Buffalo Bills have done with him. And this is perfect coaching. You can't, I mean, Josh Allen's unique. He's a little sporadic. And when you build an offense around him to get him to do what he does, it lets him be more comfortable. And the other thing that he's done is he's fixed his mechanics a lot more this year, where his cleats are in the ground. He's getting the torque, which is increasing. I mean, he went from one of the worst in terms of deep ball passing accuracy wise to one of the best. And I know Diggs helps with that, but that's play calling. I mean, when they played Miami, I mean, he lit them up. They ran a lot of man. They ran so many deep crosses. I mean, you can't guard a guy all the way across. And then he's just putting him in there. And then, when you fix your mechanics, you put that together in an offense that fits him, lets him roll a little bit, lets him, see the field and do things because he likes things over the middle of the field a lot more. You get an outcome like this, and it's as much as me, I want to like rub in people's faces. You just like a guy that got hated on so much just to do well. Like that's his career, and people forget about that. And the other thing too, Buffalo's a good team. People don't that because their lines are good. Their defense, you got Trey White, who's unbelievable over there. I mean, that's a team, people think about New England. I don't care what you got. New England's not beating Buffalo, and that Buffalo's going to own that division for a while.
Sean McDermott's a great coach. And
he led Tyrod Taylor to the playoffs.
Not the other way around, Rhys. Is that what you're saying?
No.
And so the other interesting part about that, and so I'm going sideways on it, but first of all, dynasty players, pick up Gabriel Davis wherever you can. Guy's a player. Second of all,
can I say one other thing quick though? That people kept saying, well, Josh Allen can't get wide receivers into fantasy, relevancy. Well, one, that was wrong initially. After the start of his rookie year, which again, he's a rookie from Wyoming. Okay, first of all, he made Robert Foster, a guy that I liked, and Zay Jones. They were top 30 wide receivers during that stretch at the end of his rookie year, which that's pretty good for those two guys.
Right.
Then year 2, he made John Brown a wide receiver too. And now he's doing, and Beasley was decent. And now he's doing this with all these guys. Like, just because we have this bias against somebody, you can't say they can't produce receivers because it was there. He's already making these receivers something. And now you can see he's doing it with better receivers. So, you were talking about Gabriel Davis, like, these guys are sneaky starts, even if they're not Diggs or Brown. They might get you a week, like Beasley had 100 yards last week.
Right. And I would also throw out that Dawson Knox has a chance when he comes back from concussion to be viable with the sorry state of the tight end position in fantasy football. So we talked about Diggs, and it's incredible to me that we come in with all this. All right, first of all, one of the things I dislike about the fantasy community is we don't admit that we were dealing with small sample sizes all around. There are no big sample sizes. So we take this bias and we spread it like mayonnaise over a foot-long sandwich, and we say receivers on new teams can't be productive. So we're going to move Hopkins down. We're going to move Diggs down in our rankings. Those two are having a pretty good start to the season.
Yes.
Yep. And I think part of that too is like you're saying, you have to think of the situations and where those other wide receivers were placed. I mean, sometimes it's injury. Sometimes it's a bad fit. Did they fit the offense? I mean, honestly, I think Arizona's kind of misusing Hopkins. Like their screens and this and that, and he's just getting a lot of receptions and low yards per reception and, whatever, but he's getting fed, and I'm like, that's not really his role, but, whatever. He's not going down the field, which is what happened with Watkins, Deshaun Watson, I mean. But pretty interesting to watch him kind of fall apart right now, too.
One thing about Hopkins, though, is I kind of understand what Cliff Kingsbury is thinking, because Hopkins is so good after the catch. So why not give him lots more yards to run after?
Well, especially Kirk's been nicked up. Fitzgerald, while sure-handed, is maybe a little past his prime, maybe a little. And,
Don't tell him that.
I know. You lose that King Butler, you see
Isabella?
why we're – huh?
Isabella had 2 touchdowns.
Yeah, but he still didn't get that many targets, is all I was going to say. Is if Kingsbury really loves him, you go, hey, I think that guy's a player. Let's call another play for him,
Right. Yeah. Why doesn't Kenyon Drake have more than 5 receptions in 3 games?
I've always been an Edmonds, not a Drake guy.
Yes, you have.
And so I see it with a little bit of a bias, but I think that they are purposely – but I think the offset, let's just be honest, the offset is Murray's running more than we expect.
Yep.
And go ahead.
No,
go ahead, young lad.
Well, Drake's also getting 4.5 times the carries Edmonds is.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Well, week 2 was close. Week 3 wasn't.
Right.
Yeah. Well, it's going to go off this week. It's going to go off. I mean, that's why if people are like, I don't know about Drake. I mean, he's facing Carolina, and Carolina is a terrible defense. They are terrible against running backs, by the way, as well. So if you want Tim to bust out, which I just traded for him literally before we hopped on here, I gave up Bijan Robinson, my number 1 running back, ahead of Babs, who I told you about. I gave up Scotty Miller, another guy who's sneaky right now, because if Godwin's out, and he's decent. He's fun to watch. Miller is fun to watch. And I got Drake because he plays Carolina. And then I think he plays the Jets, which I'm like, those are 2 great matchups.
So Robinson, we're bouncing all over this place. The funniest thing, and I give this to anybody listening, go look up his stats as a senior. It was injury shortened, but he scored a touchdown like every 2 or 3 carries. I mean, and he was averaging
17 yards or 18 yards. It was funny.
Am I wrong?
No, you're right. But just don't watch his leaping hurdle last week where he got bent in half.
Yeah.
Good thing he's okay. He has a back sprain, but wow.
So people that haven't seen it, he flips and he lands on his head back like this, and his body is still like back behind his head. It is it's scary.
It looked like Johnny Knox. Remember that one?
Yes, Tennessee.
Yep, that's bad.
But Texas has recruited some good running backs, Ingram and such. All right, so bring in the home stretch. I'm going to give you 3 questions. Rhys, do you have any to start with?
No, you could.
All right. Quarterbacks, there's a few quarterbacks playing awesome. And I want to focus on the ones playing great, not the other ones. And I'm going to say deal or no deal. You like them long-term or not? Aaron Rodgers.
No. I'm going to say that wears out, because they're doing so much play action and he's hitting on all of them, which I don't think it's going to keep happening. I think defenses are going to adjust.
Yeah, and Aaron Jones is playing lights out. People are not giving him his due.
Right, and bad defenses too right now.
Yes. So number 2, Russell Wilson. Is he going to cook all season?
I think he is going to cook all season because, one, he has historically been this great. Aaron Rodgers has had a drop-off for 4 years. There's a big sample size. When you talk about sample size of him not being elite, and a couple of games doesn't change that for me. Alan Lazard is still not the answer. I'm sorry. But Tyler Lockett, DK Metcalf, I mean, they're good. Russell Wilson makes them great, and that is something that is sustainable. Now, without Chris Carson, I am so sickened by that injury, by the way, that a guy would do that. Hill should be suspended, but I think he will get cooked, or he will cook continually.
Getting Hyde for cheap also is helpful, right? Yes. I mean, Hyde, we've talked about it on the show. His first career 1,000-yard season was last season, and nobody wants him.
And he's the only Seattle player with a rushing touchdown this year.
He's also the first 1,000-yard rusher for Urban Meyer in college for a running back.
Wow. Did you hear what Rhys said though? The only Seahawk with a rushing touchdown, which is crazy to me.
It was in week 1 because he had Russ. The Seahawks have scored 5 touchdowns in every game. The difference is Russ threw 5, but he threw 4 week 1 against the Falcons.
Yeah, and Carson has like 3 touchdowns receiving.
Yeah,
like what the heck?
Exactly, and but also this guy is much maligned. I think Brian Schottenheimer gets so little credit for adjusting how he's calling plays because he's allowing. I mean, he changed how he was calling plays. Let's just be honest.
Mm-hmm.
And he is. You look, they have 3 tight ends, Parkinson, Disley, and Olsen that are playing well, and so they're running a lot of 12.
Parkinson?
Colby,
yep, from Stanford.
I never heard of him.
Wasn't it Colby? No, Hollister.
Yeah, that's who
Hollister.
He was the tight end for Josh Allen at Wyoming.
Yes, and then so my bad. Parkinson he got injured. Rhys always cracks me up, and it's right. It's good, but they're getting 12 formation. David Moore's playing pretty well as a third.
Freddie Swain.
Did you see his Moore's touchdown against the Patriots? Where so he had 1 foot inbounds, then he wrapped the second one around the outside of the pylon to get his second.
Oh, I did see that one. Yeah, I did.
Yeah. And so all I was getting at is Seattle looks to be the favorite in that division.
Yes.
And so
yep.
Go ahead.
I always want to have one just small coaching point here, which is kind of cool. One thing that they've allowed them to do because Russell Wilson gets more time is you see a lot of option routes, Jeff, when it's 5 yards, 10 yards, whatever. Lockett will get down the field and he'll get 15, 20 yards down the field and then still his decision wherever he wants to go. And that's not the case everywhere. And that's something that they've developed over time. And you'll watch it. If you watch the all 22, Lockett just runs where it's open, which makes sense, but that's something they've evolved and they have the trust. That's why he's always open.
Well,
yeah, trust.
Yeah, well, Schottenheimer's just a really good dude as well. As he was at.
So we've talked about this on the podcast.
Yes.
He and Kirk Herbstreit 5 years ago.
Yes.
5, 6.
5, 6.
Rhys was 8 or 9 years old. We're at a wedding. Rhys talks each one of those into getting in one of those little photo booths with him. And so each one of those guys gets in a photo booth with him, and Herbstreit writes something nice and signs the back of it. And you're like, man, it's a good dude to be able to do, to willing to do that with the young lad.
That's sweet, man.
Which also fuels his football fire, right?
Yeah.
And we'll tell you the story behind that off the air sometime.
Okay.
So last quarterback, is he real or is he not? You want to guess where I'm going, Rhys?
Is it a bad quarterback or good quarterback?
One playing very well right now.
Dak Prescott or Josh Allen?
Well, we already talked about Allen. You're right. Dak. Is he going to be able – so Rhys talked earlier about his volume being sky high. Mm-hmm. Is he going to be able – all right, and Zeke is not playing well. The offensive line is banged up. Mm-hmm. Is Dak going to be so good for fantasy owners down the stretch?
I think he is because he has so much talent there now. Now we have this guy named Cedric Wilson, who, by the way, I liked that at Boise State a long time ago. Well, a couple years ago. I think, and I liked his quarterback, by the way, Brett Rippon, who's going to get a shot on Thursday. Oh, I loved Brett Rippon. I had Brett Rippon, and I'll say this on air because we need to talk about our hits and our misses. I had Tyree Jackson, who I liked out of Buffalo, and Brett Rippon ahead of Daniel Jones in my evals prior to the draft. So I like Rippon a lot. I think he runs an offense. He doesn't have a great arm, but he's very knowledgeable, knows where to go. So I'm really excited. He actually looked okay last week before he threw his pick. So
I looked good last week too before I messed up. That's a different story. I hope he does well. It didn't take me near as long as it took Rippon.
Yeah,
I hope Rippon does well though.
Yeah, no, I do too. Well, it's an easy game too, but I'll digress. Back to Dak. With all the weapons that he has, and he has a sample size of being a good quarterback, now you have CeeDee Lamb and Wilson, Dalton Schultz, who I liked out of Stanford. He's doing okay now too. And they're down. Like, he's just going to get fantasy numbers because how can't you? I mean, you want to talk about, people love Aaron Rodgers. And again, he's a great quarterback. When he cooked, right, he had, Driver and Jennings and Jordy and James Jones and Finley. And when he hasn't had all those guys, it hasn't been as great. Now he's got Cooper and Gallup and Lamb and Wilson and and Zeke out of the backfield, which, by the way, don't throw to Zeke apparently against Seattle because they just owned any pass to him. But Andy can run. I don't know how Dak can't be a QB1 down the stretch and be pretty good.
Plus Zeke dropped a few last week.
Mm-hmm.
And so, you mentioned Stanford tight end. So I always just enjoy this.
Fleener.
Stanford has put out a lot of tight ends that people just don't appreciate. And, we talked Colby Parkinson, Fleener, but every year they have one get drafted. And they have a good one this year, too, that I think will get drafted second day. Oh, I forgot his name. They may have get drafted.
I'm forgetting that, too. That's not in my head right now. I know you're talking about.
Oh, so one disappointing quarterback. Can he rebound? Fantasy is all I'm talking about. Matthew Stafford.
I'm trying to figure out what Detroit's doing.
So
if I'm being honest. Jeff. I mean, you don't have Galladay till this week, So, but I mean, he's not eating. Marvin's not eating. They're not using Swift as much. I just don't get it. They're running a lot with Peterson. That O-line is okay. Like I had more hope for it than it's kind of producing. I really don't get what they're doing. And honestly, I'm going to say no. I think it's just going to go down with the ship. Patricia's going to go, and next year's where you're going to shoot for. But Stafford's historically been good.
Yeah.
In stretches. I mean, because you want to talk about sample sizes. People used last year's sample size. Stafford's such a sleeper. Did you see him in these 5 games or whatever it was? Right?
That was me.
And we say that's what's going to happen this year. We never know. My biggest hope is that with Galladay back, the offense comes back together. And because I like Hawkinson too, but it just doesn't feel right this year, especially now that they're not doing well overall. I think with a low, and again, something he's dealt with most of his career, a low morale. It's just tough to see him being a great this year.
Yep. And you mentioned Hawk. I would say start him in fantasy leagues against the Saints. The Saints have been abused by tight ends. We remember Waller doing it to him on primetime. Tanyan and even Sternberger flashed a little bit last week.
Right.
And so, anyway.
Can I talk about the other quarterback? Do you think Rhys will bounce back?
No. You can just see it. He doesn't have the arm. He doesn't trust his arm either. I mean, he's trying to anticipate those throws to the outside, and they're low because he doesn't have the arm strength to drive it through. It's sad because I have such respect for the work that he puts in. I mean, I'm trying to think of who the right tackle was from that retired, and his retirement speech was crying because of how much work Drew Brees did, and his day ended way after everyone else's day, but he's done. Unlike Brady still is decent enough. Brady's completion percentage and everything is lower. I mean, you can just see he's tailing off too, but he's tailing off at a lower or a better arc than Brees is right now.
Well, I will say with Brees' arm strength dwindling, that means Alvin Kamara is going to do very, very well as he got like 13 passes. Especially with Michael Thomas gone, he is really no one that he trusts.
My joke on Twitter was, this is finally going to be the year that Kamara doesn't get 81 receptions. It's going to be more.
Yes.
3 years in a row of 81 receptions. It's got to be different this year.
Which is a crazy number to land.
What are the odds of that?
Oh, yeah. So, Nick, we appreciate you being on with us. Casual conversation on football. What would you like to promote? So you have a little bit of an audience. What can we help you get the word out?
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. I mean, if you follow me on Twitter at _Nick Whalen, right away, my top one is all my publications. So like they've talked about the Devy report, that's all college guys. The graduates, that's going to be all these rookies. I also made one that's dynasty startup. So it's like if you have a startup draft in terms of strategy and what to think and what to prepare before, during, and after, that's another one that I made. And then exciting, I'm going to be starting a YouTube channel. So I've already put in the work on that. It's going to be X's and O's, everything that I do. And that's going to be hopefully this week. We'll see.
Oh my. It's exciting.
Yeah.
It's exciting. Rhys, any parting thoughts for Mr. Nick here?
Hope your Bears do well.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. So you have the Broncos on Thursday, Rhys?
We're playing the Jets. Yes, I hope we win. We should win. We should kick Gase out because it's kind of fitting. Gase lived by the Broncos. Now he's about to die by the Broncos.
Yeah, he is. And also, Rhys, we can both pour one out for Cortland Sutton, man. My boy.
Oh yeah.
Us and the 49ers, right?
Oh, and the Chargers. We'll just say the Chargers every year.
Yeah.
Brutal.
Oh man. So you're so excited.
Yeah. Thanks for having me though. This is always fun to me. I enjoyed meeting both of you and coming on here all the time. But I always learn a lot. You guys are super sharp in the community.
Thank you very much. Have a great one, Nick.
Thanks. You guys too.
All right. Bye.